Once a fossil has been uncovered and identified, we can learn a great deal about the specific organism based solely on the bone shape. While some of the fossils found seem fragmented and incomplete, they do provide a lot of valuable insights. For instance, they can teach us a lot about the organism's health, lifestyle, and biological sex. Take the skull, for example. Finding a skull is one of the most important pieces of evidence we can find because it can give us a great amount of information. Here's what paleoanthropologist Dr. Kenny has to say about skulls.
I'm a biological anthropologist, so I've studied humans. So the skull is quite informative, gives you age, sex. The teeth as well could give you your age as well, and diet.
Just in distinguishing sex alone, male skulls tend to be larger, they have larger muscle attachment sites, and they tend to have more square-like eye sockets than females. These are just a few examples as to why skulls can be so valuable. Another very informative fossil is the pelvis. Similar to the skull, we can also learn about the sex and lifestyle of the organism. For example, a female pelvis is typically wider and much more broad. Additionally, a pelvis bone can also tell us whether the individual walked on two legs or not. Paleoanthropologist Dr. Lee Berger will show us what finding a pelvic bone means.
And there you can see the anatomy is identical to it. Here's where I was talking about. This is where the acetabulum is. This is a juvenile. This is an adult. And you can see that the morphology is exactly the same. There, I turn it over. There's that auricular surface I was telling you about. And there's the anatomy is identical.
Let's watch the process of interpreting bone shape in action. In this video clip, paleoanthropologist Dr. John Hawks has discovered an imprint of a jaw. He is trying to determine whether the jaw belonged to an ancient hominid or another animal. Let's see what the bone features tell him.
Impression, it's flat on its occlusal surface. Its occlusal surface is kind of at right angles to what appears to be the root. And it's big. It's bigger than any monkey, or a big baboon could be that size, but that baboon tooth has got these jaggy, serrated sort of.
And this one looks pretty flat, doesn't it?
This is pretty flat looking. Right? This is the sort of tooth that you look at and you say, that should be a hominin tooth. Now I'm going to try to talk myself out of it. This little bit is actually probably, this is an impression, right? So the tooth this is like the negative of the top of the tooth. This rounded surface here is the enamel of the back of the tooth. The fact that there's this little bulgy bit in the impression tells me that the dentin was worn into.
We had like a cavity.
Right? No, that's natural tooth wear. And if I'm following the shape of this, right, you can sort of follow the shape that tooth had to have. Now, problem is when you get up to here, this looks like it does another little dip like this. So the question is, am I looking at this tooth having this shape and a second tooth here? Or am I looking at one tooth that has this sort of wavy shape, right?
Because the wavy shape would be more.
The wavy shape is not hominin.
Yeah.
Kenny, the longer I look at this, the more I think it's a small bovid.
Small bovid.
And I'll tell you why. Because if these are actually the roots that we're seeing and not just impressions of the roots, then they are that little, you know. Yeah, exactly. These are nice for that. It's the back one that's a bit of a trouble.
Yeah.
But this is certainly dentin here. I think, you see how I think this is actually the shape of this tooth?
The tooth, right.
So I'm thinking.
I do see that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I see it now.
And if that's true, and this is sort of like this wavy
then it's
sort of thing, then I think bovid.
As you can see, there is so much to learn from the fossils that we find. These were just two examples that illustrate what they mean, but as more and more fossils are discovered, there is a whole history to uncover.